Hi, it's Kevin Adler, and I'm here to talk about the in-person aspect of this year's Takoma Park Folk Festival, which is our craft show. Because of the COVID variant, we will not be allowed to have live audiences for our performances. The performances will be live, but they'll be streamed. However, we are having an in-person craft show on Sunday, September 12th. It will be from noon till 6. It'll be in the parking lot of the library of the Takoma Park Library and the auditorium. We encourage you to come, look at crafts from more than 20 artisans. It'll be a perfectly safe environment to do so, and you're encouraged to wear masks and so on. And I'm delighted to say that one of those artisans, Cindy Gossage, is here with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about her fiber craft and what you can see if you come and visit her booth. So Cindy, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I think you told me that this is your first folk festival show, but you're a veteran of, you've been a crafter for a while. Can you tell me about what you do and how you got into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I literally learned how to sew when I could barely read. My mom, like a lot of moms, taught me how to do very basic embroidery, very basic knitting. She taught me how to make doll clothes by hand. And so that was kind of in my bones for a long time. Fast forward, when I went away to college, my grandmother gave me a quilt that her mother had made, and a light went off. And I've been quilting ever since. I've made bed quilts, I've made baby quilts. Now, as I've gotten older and I realize how long things take, I tend to work a little bit smaller, and I tend to work more loosely. I used to make very, very traditional quilts that people who quilt would recognize the patterns, and they were very, very.
Oh, you mean like the star shapes and things like?
Yes, exactly. Star shapes, log cabins, 9 patches, etc. So that's how I got started. And I've been working the way I work now for probably the last 15 years, which is to say much smaller and much looser.
Well, I think you may have a sample or two that you could show us of things you're bringing to the folk festival.
I do indeed.
Let's see.
I have a piece that I'm actually finishing right now. I hope it'll be done in time for the show. That incorporates a lot of the way I work, which is to say I work in kind of 2 different layers. If you can, is this in focus enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. We see a spiral and a lot of colors. Correct.
So what you're seeing here is, and if I get a little closer, I don't know if you can see the raw edges. You can see the stitches. But
yes.
I tend to work a lot in a kind of a loose collage format where I take small pieces of fabric and lay them down, and I stitch them down visibly, right? So here you might see that.
Right, on the front side of it, right?
Exactly. And in the old days, that's not at all how people would have worked, but I've really come to like the way you can add a little subtle bits of color that way. The other thing I like about it is people who sew know this term seam allowance. If I'm gonna sew where you don't see the seam, I need an extra inch of fabric, roughly. And because I really am trying to work with the smallest possible scraps so that nothing goes to the landfill, that inch could mess me up. So this way, I get a lot more fabric to use. So I lay down one layer, and then the next layer is often hand embroidery. And you correctly identified the spiral. I've actually been working with spirals a lot recently. There's something I really like about sort of this symbolism of things collapsing and expanding, right? And that kind of potentially endless motion.
Well, this last year and a half, it's a lot of things that felt like they're collapsing, but maybe it's a spiral that then works its way back up.
You can hope.
Yeah.
You can most definitely hope. I have another couple of pieces I thought I might show, just to say, because I don't always work in this kind of abstract way. I also, like a lot of people, I love flowers and I love still lives. And so this would be an example of let's see, there we go.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. That's very much in focus. That is
Right.
beautiful.
That's a very, very typical. And if I get it closer, you're going to see I'm doing some of the same. I think you can see where the outer stitches are visible, right? And again, it allows me to use just the tiniest bits of fabric that would otherwise, potentially go into the trash. But here they end up being part of a mosaic.
How do you get those waves in the yellow part there? That's stitching also, or what is that?
Yeah, this texture here
Yeah.
is machine quilting. And I do a combination of hand and machine stitching. Often I do machine stitching on the background, in part because you exactly see that texture. And that texture is a lot easier to achieve with a machine because of the way it sews. It also creates a piece of fabric that's very dense and durable. Traditionally, quilting means 3 layers. There's a back piece that's usually kind of invisible. There's a front piece, and then in between is what we call batting. And that's a very thin layer of something. It could be cotton. The quilt that I have of my great grandmother's is literally loose cotton from their farm in Texas. It's not even put together except by this. And then, so that's where these stitches come from. In the old days, people used whatever they had. They used cotton, they used wool, they used, in the Depression, there are examples of people using newspapers. And all those stitches are about taking those 3 layers and melding them into one integrated piece.
Wonderful. Fascinating. And I think you said you had one more you wanted to.
Yeah. I again, along with this idea of salvaging things, I work a lot with other people's cast-offs. That might be things from the Goodwill. It might be other people's remnants. A few years ago, I stumbled onto a decorator store who was throwing away their sample books from the year before. Some of them were huge pieces of fabric. Some of them were teeny tiny. So I don't know if can you see all the tiny, these little rectangles?
Absolutely. Yes. And it looks like
these are samples of silk. And this is also silk, the grass is silk. These are the little pieces that were left when I took apart the book. I got pieces of silk about yay big. And then I had these little rectangles that had been glued to the paper that told what the color was and what the manufacturer was and what the care instructions were. And I thought, I don't want to throw those away. They're too beautiful. So I soaked them for a few days until I could peel all that paper off. And then I put them together into this mosaic and then added my little grass scene. Because that is very much a lot of what motivates me. I love to sew and I love to make things, but I hate the idea of adding to landfills.
Okay.
And some of your audience may be very aware that textiles are a major culprit for waste and greenhouse gases and very intense use of resources like water. So the more I can use things that wouldn't otherwise be used, the happier I am.
Well, and then the themes you're using too, the grasses and the flowers and stuff, it goes with that. Now, if I was, visiting the folk festival and you're there, I visit your booth. Could I perhaps bring some scraps and start talking to you about, a commission, that kind of? Do people do that with you? And
absolutely, I actually love doing that kind of work. I love that sort of back and forth. So yeah, people can bring anything they think they're interested in.
Okay.
It might be complete. It might need things added to it, but by all means, please.
Okay. And do you, I don't know, even teach this, or have done workshops or stuff? Or?
I belong to a couple of fiber arts guilds. One is very, very tiny, and I'm almost a founding member. I'm sort of the second round of people. It's based in Hyattsville Fiber Arts Guild. And I have taught some workshops for them. Mostly I have taught traditional piecing, the kind of piecing I don't do as much anymore. And I've taught a couple on hand embroidery. And I do very much enjoy teaching.
Okay, great, great. Well, it sounds like it'd just be great to visit with you at the folk festival, and the stuff you showed is lovely. So I'm encouraging everybody, come on September 12th, noon to 6. The craft show will be alive and well. If you're not able to make to the craft show, the music will be streaming from 4 to 9. And we hope that people will join us on September 12th in whatever way and shape they can. So Cindy, thanks again. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks on the 12th.
And my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.